And it would help if I move the PowerPoint here. So this is the site plan of the proposed development. The subject property currently is vacant, heavily wooded, and as you can see, it has a irregular shape to the, him explain that to you. Again, this is the site plan, the proposed site plan of the development. And this shows an aerial view of the property. So as you can see, there is residential development to the east of the property. Vacant land goes all the way to Holloway Road. To the west, again, vacant land. And as I mentioned, in 2023, there was a proposed or approved development to the north of this project, of this property. This is the zoning map of the property. The stars moved to the right a little bit, but the yellow portions are the rural residential components. And as you can see, the arrows showing where Holloway Road is located. This is a street view of the site towards that southeast corner of the subject property. And here is the future land use map. So what we're gonna do is just, the future land use map currently is showing mixed use residential. We're going to maintain the land use there. In your staff report, you may see that there was a statement that we may change the land use. We are not going to move forward with that. We'll just keep it here. This does coincide with our comprehensive plan. Our comprehensive plan does calls for the development of mixed use and office and retail. The proposed mixed use development will help to meet that need. The companion future land use map shows a land use destination of high density residential. So I apologize, I think I said mixed use before, but it's high density residential. So this will include both residential and commercial uses. The compatible land use destination can be high density mixed use, but again, we're not intending on changing the mixed use here. So the rezoning will be the only change that will be made. Here is a proposed visual of what the development could look like. And we are still in the planning stages of what the architectural materials will consist of. And there's another image of the proposed development. We are just presenting this tonight. We're not asking for a vote. This may come back before you. And I will now hand it over to the city manager.
Thank you. Good evening. As Ms. Keidra stated, this has been a plan we've been working on with the property owners along that corridor for the last year and a half, working along with TSW on behalf of the city. And the intent behind this was not to have another major corridor that looks like the same with a bunch of strip centers and so forth. So with that in mind, we took a proactive approach of working with the landowners to land plan this project to something that you typically not see on the south side of Atlanta, or should I say south of I-20. You see this in the Brookhaven, you see this in the Sugar Hill, you see this in the Swanee, you see this in the Alpharetta area. And working with those guys to say, hey, how do we do something different here that hasn't been done on the south side of Atlanta in the 25 years I've been here and engaged in land use planning and management. And so with that, we sat down with these landowners and said, look, we don't want to see the same typical development. And with that, we've worked together with a land planning firm to come up with a true concept of a mixed-use development where we have vertical mixed use as well as restaurant opportunities, office opportunities, residential opportunities. What you see before you on this plan was back in 2010, the county engaged in a livable centers initiative study that was done for this whole entire area. And part of that plan reflected what you see here on the map to the right, right? As we know that back then we were coming out of, well, still in a recession back then, and the market has changed. And so that plan has changed to some degree, but we recognize that some of the components in that plan are still useful. And with that in mind, we move forward with a new concept. I will say that the multifamily that you see here will probably end up not getting built, for the simple fact that I can't tell you who's potentially coming there, but there's a major entity that's coming there that would be a literal game changer for not just the city of Stockbridge, but for Henry County as a whole and the south side of Atlanta for the whole. Because in order for you to enjoy that venue, you literally have to go on the north side of Atlanta to get to it. And I will leave it at that. But the other components of this are still very much in play. And this is something that obviously we've talked to Henry County about. They are very much engaged in this. This is the type of planning that I was hoping that would happen throughout the county at some point to slow down the mass development in the hitherlands. But a portion of this property to the south is still in the county. The owner of that portion of the development is actually going to be seeking annexation, which the county is aware of. They've seen this plan. They have no problems with it, and should allow for that portion to come into the city. This will be a little different from what you see across the street on the southwest portion of the interchange with the bridges of Jodico. You have more dispersed use. Here it's a little bit more condensed. But pretty much not accomplishing this with a big box retail. There will be no big box retail here. There will be mom and pop shops with folks living above, restaurant opportunities, and we are actually actively talking to restaurants, a few of them you may know by name, about locating in portions of this development as well. So it's an ongoing process with us working with the landowners and their reps to make this happen. And hopefully, by the time I come back to you guys next month, I will actually be able to name the entity that's actually coming on the top portion of this property.
Okay.
All right, and this is just for presentation. I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. While you're there, any questions from the board? Mr. J.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Jackson, and thank you, City Manager, for the report. A few questions, actually, but I know it's still in the planning process, so I just want to make sure, one, I say this every meeting just about, I'm 1,000% for bringing new development and bringing success for our city, but this is, I definitely can say this is something that the young professionals that we want to bring to the city would definitely come to, but I have a few concerns and a few questions. One is, let me see how to say this right. Is there a reason why this is still another, like, kind of sort of the similar project in District 5? Like, is there no other district this can be done in around the city, or?
So the answer to the question is, where do you put density from a land use smart planning concept? You put it next to where the transportation network could support it, right? If I built this in Kellytown, it would be totally out of place, right? Because there's nothing in Kellytown to support a development like this, right? So most of the folks, like you said, this development probably won't have me living in it, but who will it have? My son, who's 23 years old, that lives in a development just like this in Alexandria, Virginia, right? But he doesn't want to come home because those amenities don't exist here, right? So yeah, this will be something that would attract him pretty much in your generation, right? So this is not for me, right? When I leave this, it's going to be either acreages or island on a boat. Outside of that, this is where you would want to put a density development. And if you go back to Henry County's zoning and land use plan, this is what you call a node. So you have the density necessary, but it's close to where you have our major arterial interstate interchange to allow for flow of traffic. So this is the best place to put it from a land use planning standpoint.
Okay, and I'm gonna try to sum up my last questions all at one time. One, I saw on here the collaboration master plan coordination, and this is a huge development. I don't see that there was any coordination or discussion with the school board about it. I mean, it's literally directly close to a school. Hold on, I'm not finished. I'm gonna give you all of them at one time. One, the school board, because you're literally right beside the school. Traffic study, also is there going to be any type of road expansion for that area? And then I want to say these are 2 retention ponds on the, I want to say north and kind of the southeastern, western side of it. Are those retention ponds in the layout, or what is that on the side? All right. Go ahead.
To the north. Okay, so first question, BOE. So no, the BOE, this hasn't been approved, so no, it hasn't gone to them, and they don't review zoning nor the county zonings. They give reference as a term to the impact. So what you see here are not 3 bedrooms. These are typically going to be for the above retail, probably 1 and 2 bedroom homes for the most part. You will have some townhomes here. Like I said, the apartments will probably go away or will go away and will not be developed as part of this if that entity, when I can disclose who it is, when you find out who it is, those apartments will go away. So as it relates to impact on the school, should not be any different than the development that's 100% rental a half a mile down the street from this, or what's happening at the bridges of Jodico for the most part. As it relates to traffic study, there's already been traffic study done. As you see on this plan, you have a 4-lane divided that is being proposed. Right now, if you're on Patrick Henry and you're going from Jodico to Eagles Landing, the lanes that you see that are northbound and southbound are actually the northbound road up to Eagles Landing. Both the city and the county have put monies towards this engineering and design work as it relates to the other additional lane that needs to come through. The right-of-way exists for pretty much 95% of the roadway. The bridge will have to be replaced, obviously. And also, and the developer would also put in part of the cost to make those road improvements or bond for in lieu thereof. I will say that, like I said, this is a collaborative. We understand that this road is going to be improved. This development obviously won't get built in 1 year. This is going to be a multi-year project. And so the road construction will coincide with the development. Our goal is to have SPLOS 2 be the actual development for the northbound lane, well, the southbound lane, 2 lanes when it comes through. And that's what's planned for Patrick Henry. So right now it's in SPLOS 6 to do the engineering and design. It'll be in T-SPLOS 2 for development and the replacement of the bridge, which still needs to be replaced regardless if the road gets 4-laned.
Mr. President, may I speak? Mr. Chair,
Mr. Tibble?
may I speak? At one time, that area was supposed to be an overlay district of high-rise buildings. I noticed when I was reading, they said they didn't have any other plans about that area. I know for a fact that that area was supposed to have been high-rise office building at one time. Could you explain to the audience what is an actual overlay district?
Okay. So an overlay district is literally, you have your base zoning, which may be residential or commercial. An overlay is what you put more additional restrictions on top of what you see without actually adding it to the base zoning, the underlying zoning. So those regulations usually include architectural design, landscaping. They could control additional uses as part of the overlay district or restrict certain types of uses as part of the overlay district. So it's just another layer of development regulations on top of what's existing already. And that's why they call it an overlay. And yes, the original plan had, as you see in the 2010 plan, had more office. As you know, COVID has changed the way of life as it relates to office. A lot of office space are now sitting vacant. Goax, Dunwoody, and Sandy Springs, with their tax base is going to be impacted by vacant office buildings. And they actually had an article in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution about the negative impacts on vacant office space that is going to be impacting Sandy Springs and Dunwoody over the next year or two, because not a lot of companies are now allowing their employees hybrid schedules. A lot of them are working 100% from home. And so that's why the office, you see, there's been a downplay in office. Yes, 10 years ago, I would have told you that this area was ripe for office development, or 15 years ago. that reality has changed a little bit.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from the board? Yes, Mr. Planton.
I just have a question. Is it correct to assume that all of this property is currently annexed into the city of Stockbridge?
All except the portion below Holloway, adjacent between Holloway and Jodico. It's not. It's recently been purchased by Mr. Patel. Mr. Patel is on board with this plan and will be annexing in his property within the near future. So all of it will eventually be in the city.
Anyone else? I do need to ask, as we will not be voting on this tonight, do we open for public debate?
Right now, it's just the discussion.
Yep.
We're not taking a vote tonight. But if you would like to hear from anybody, you can.
Okay. I think it's only fair, so I will ask if you would like to comment. If you are for, please line up to my right or your left. Make sure you sign in. If you are against, please line up to my left or your right. When you approach the podium, please make sure you state your name, state your address. Speak into the microphone, please.
Good evening. Before you start the clock, you're Anthony, correct?
I am.
Your name tag is,
I
yeah.
moved. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I was just kept wondering who was who. Sorry. Thank you. My name is Ann Fields. Just to speak briefly on the Patrick Henry Parkway development, those of us that live in Eagles Crest, which is across the street from this development, the houses that are in the existing development, which you can see the existing development is below the hospital. So all those homes that are on the right side of the development proposed on the screen, those existing homes is Eagles Crest. So I live there. I'm house number 8 on Chase Marion Way. And I know the developments are going to happen. The 77 and 87 Holloway, I want to bring this up first because I'm sitting here with my jaw dropped. I opened a public records request to get a copy of the finalized plan for that. It was closed, stating it was not prepared. However, during Main Street or the other daytime public meetings, one of the councilmen had said that plan was ready months ago in March, and during the March meeting. I have yet to see a finalized development plan for 77, 87, and what is on the screen is not what was sent to us, is not what was discussed, is not what council voted on. So now I'm even more concerned with what I'm going to say about this. Point number 1 being the entrances and exits of anything you build along Patrick Henry have to be considered very seriously. The Department of DOT has already stated, has already stated that they will not allow entrance and exit from Jodico because of the I-75 ramp. So immediately, any property that is below the Holloway down to Jodico could be developed, but you're pushing those people down in and then back out. And we're very, very concerned about the Holloway intersection. I tried my hardest during the SPLOST meetings to get a roundabout considered for Holloway and Patrick Henry. That may end up as part of the overall development plan for the widening of the road, but it was not a separate consideration. Any traffic studies being done need to be done during the school year, period, because the traffic to and from the school morning and afternoon is abominable, and it's horribly dangerous entering and exiting Holloway onto Patrick Henry because of school traffic and the traffic that's already perusing Patrick Henry. We haven't seen the worst of the traffic here because Costco development Bridges is nowhere near done. That is going to probably quadruple or more the volume of traffic on Patrick Henry alone. All of those things please need considered. We don't need to lose anyone's life, especially someone with a child in their car. Contingent upon any right-of-way for any development should be the fact that that land be donated for the widening of Patrick Henry if it already hasn't been acquired. That would save any millions of dollars to go towards construction, design and construction from the SPLOST and T-SPLOST funds. If you're going to approve multi-use and mixed use, you were just mentioning taking out the apartments as part of closing the first phase of this deal. That's kind of a big concern. If we're staying with mixed use, multi-use, shouldn't we stick to that master plan? I'm very concerned about noise, fire protection, insects, and rodents, as they are paramount to our physical and mental health. And so we would want to have noise barriers, fire protection, proper placement of between buildings, all of those adequate things that won't drive one building to catch another on fire, and of course, insect control. And as I mentioned, that property that's below Holloway has no exit onto Jodico. So please plan entrance and exit into this plan very, very carefully. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Connie Snow, and I live at 426 Chase Marion Way. I also live in the Eagles Crest subdivision, and I second everything that Ann said. When we had meetings about this months ago, I'd brought up the school systems. We sit directly in front of Eagles Landing High School, Eagles Landing Middle School, and not very far from Flippin Elementary. In fact, most kids in the Eagles Landing Middle and High School walk to and from their homes that live in that area. So then we're gonna put all these extra apartments and homes right around that area where obviously those kids are gonna attend that school because it is in close walking distance. And they're probably gonna walk because that's just what they're gonna do. That's what young teenage kids and middle school kids do, right? That road's not set up for them. They're all gonna get hit. We're gonna have so many kids that are gonna be hit by cars because we're not planning properly. Additionally, there's so much little water resources and streams around the area. My neighborhoods are already constantly flooding with the creek source that's right behind Eagles Landing High School. It floods quite a lot, so much so that my property is eradicating rapidly. The moment you guys keep cutting down these trees, that water's just gonna start flooding. And it's not only gonna flood Eagles Crest, it's gonna flood the surrounding homes around that area. It's gonna start to breach out across Jodico and those homes over there. And it's eventually gonna impact the Eagles Landing High School and middle school area and their football fields. It's all gonna be damped and wet and damaged. It's not a properly planned development, and to piggyback off what Ann said, the renderings that we were given for both Patrick Henry and Holloway look drastically different than they do today. It was listed on the site that the property owners were contacted. We were contacted months ago when this first started, but as we can all tell today, what we talked about and what we even disagreed on it's been made differently. It's changed rapidly, and none of us have been consulted. And that's not fair to us as a community. When I was here months ago and I brought up the school system to the mayor and the city council, and I told them that I was not only worried about the danger of our kids walking, I was worried about the increased crime rate. There's been multiple shootings in my neighborhood. Again, I sit directly behind the high school football field, so much so that the kids can walk from the football field through the property that the school owns and end up in my backyard. We've had multiple shootings. The crime is gonna get so much worse. Our infrastructure is so poorly planned right now. This is not a good place for it. Because at the end of the day, while the businesses are getting rich and we think we're solving this shortage of homes, all we're doing is cramming stuff in areas where it's poorly planned and it doesn't belong. This development does not belong here. This development will cause us to be Terra Boulevard. And I beg of you to please do whatever you can to stop it. We deserve better in this county, and whatever you guys can do to do what's right, not just for me, but for our kids. Because at the end of the day, the ultimate impact from that development is going to be our children. And there's not one person that sits on this board or the city that can deny that. The mayor told me at the last meeting that while he cared about kids, those two schools sat on county property and it wasn't the city's problem. That was his exact words. At what point do we care? Thank you.
Thank you.
just sit this on here. Hey, y'all. I was not really prepared to come, but then I saw the agenda for tonight, so I wanted to come. My name is Tina Corey, and I live at 660 Chambers Road in McDonough, Georgia. I've been a resident here for 35 years, and I'm the founder of Conserve Henry. And I just wanted to point out a few things, and I see a lot of friendly faces there, but one of the things that I wanted to kind of share with you all is the fact that when you're looking at your future land use map and you see where we're going to go and that's going to be the future, a lot of things need to be taken into consideration. And I know most of you probably had breakfast this morning. I know I did. I had bacon and eggs. Next time that you look at a plate of bacon and eggs, I want you to think of two things. I want you to remember that for the chicken, that was a day's work. For the pig, that was a lifetime commitment. So when these things come up, and this is a result of ARC and TSW, which is their planners, along with SB 612 that created this. When you look at that, I want you to remember that for the developers and their attorneys, this is a day's work. They don't live here, they're not invested. For us here in the community, we live here, we're going to stay here, we're invested here, and that's the commitment that's going to be made for us to endure. A couple of things I wanted to raise with you all is, number one, I'll be perfectly honest with you, I'm really disappointed that there's nobody up there on that board that looks like me. Nobody on that board that looks like me. And that's kind of a little disconcerting that it's an all-male board and nobody there to look out for family and children issues, nobody there to look out for racial and social issues, or conservation and education. And one of the problems that we have right now in Henry County that I am so, just worried beyond what words can actually express is our schools and our education. If you remember, Clayton County lost its accreditation. It took them several years to get their accreditation back. We are on that path now. These are the same developers from Clayton County that are now pushing what they want to push here, more apartments, more this, more that, while we have failing schools. And if we don't wake up and do something, we're going to be going down that path. And all you have to do is turn on the paper and look at the news. I also am here because I have a nephew that was murdered in Hampton. His name is Fernando Rodriguez, and that happened in 2019, and we've been waiting for justice for that. We have a lot of issues in this county that need to be taken into consideration, and we need to start looking at collaborations and things like when you said you left out the education. We should have an intergovernmental relationship with all of the other agencies, and especially with our children and family side of it, that education not being the forefront in all these decisions made. And I'm sorry, no more apartments. So back in the day when my children were little, I have 4 children that are grown, and 3 of them live here in Henry County, and I have 7 grandkids and 1 on the way. So back in the day, our problem was I live on the other side of the interstate. I worked so hard to get funding in the Department of Transportation for Henry County, for Jonesboro Road and for Jodico Road, because our problem was we had emergencies. We could not even get over to the hospital. So now that we finally have some openings to be able to get to the hospital, and that's the only hospital that serves our county, now you want to block, after I've tried so hard to open up a path to get there, so that I have a son that's type 1 juvenile diabetic. We have other issues. I have aging parents or grandparents that were living with me at the time. And, that was a big concern. So please just, I'm not saying anything about this development completely, but we're a family. We're all Henry County. And your land use map impacts Henry County's land use map and Hampton's land use map. And we just need to start to come together and start thinking about conserving Henry to make it better for those that are coming behind us. And I know that my children want to stay here for a good county, but they don't want to stay here for a county that doesn't care about education. Who wants to put their kids in a failing school? So again, thank you. Look at SB 612. You'll see who benefits from that. And it's not the citizens of Henry County. Thank you.
Thank you. So as this was a city presentation and update, I did not ask if there was anyone from TSW Consulting, so I'm going to make the assumption no one is here. So you want to rebut or make any comments?
You said from where?
From the consulting group.
No, the consulting group was hired by the city to do the work.
I understand.
They didn't
I just wanted to
propagate
make
this
sure.
on their own. This was something that they was asked to work in with us and collaborative with the landowners to come up with a master plan for the area, right? So someone said that this is different from the plan that was approved. So I assume that everybody's getting this mixed up with the piece of property that pretty much wrap adjacent to where Miss Connie lives, which is that triangular piece, if you could see it on here, which is this. This is not included in this project. That's already been rezoned. Council rezoned that last year. That's not part of this project. So no, this is different from that. It's not the same thing that we changed it. I think that's a little confusing there. That's not the same thing. I do agree. I have an 11-year-old that just left Flippin Elementary and is now at Eagles Landing Middle School as a 6th grader. My son attended Eagles Landing High School and Dutchtown High School and Dutchtown Middle School. So I get it. I'm vested here too, 25 years in. And my kids have gone through the school system and are going through the system. And so I understand the concerns, and thank you, Victoria. I don't know if you remember me, but I remember when you were fighting for bike lanes in the county when I first got here. So yes, ma'am. So, and she knows, we used to ask to put those as conditions on zoning and got them denied by the Board of Commissioners years ago. And unfortunate, the work that she did, especially on Jodico Road where we had the bike lanes, they're now gone, unfortunately, you can't see them. Right? But we still have folks to traverse. So yes, as it relates to Costco having an impact and the traffic impact, I agree that yes, that intersection, because I go that way once I leave Eagles Landing Middle School, I come down and then I turn north on that road. And yes, the traffic is, it is bad. The school's traffic is bad on Tunis to begin with, because you got people that don't adhere to the rules. But as it relates to a traffic relief, I want everybody to remember that there is a western parallel connector that will go from Hudson Bridge down to Jodico Road. One portion of that Chin Parkway is already constructed, and the state is working on getting the portion between Jodico Road back to Hudson Bridge. If you don't know where that is, if you go to Walmart right there at the McDonald's, the 4-lane road that just dead ends at the back of McDonald's, that's the road that's actually going to push all the way down to Jonesboro Road. So there will be a western parallel that's coming through that would obviously relieve, and that phase starts construction, I think, next month. So that'll be underway. So that'll be some relief, so you won't have a lot of traffic coming directly to Costco from that area. They'll come down on the other side. Yes, we need to look at the intersection, and that's something that I think she mentioned about a roundabout. And yeah, and that would be helpful if we can make that work. Definitely, I think it makes sense as part of the deal. No, there is no access point that we've looked at, because it doesn't make any sense to put an access point between the northbound interchange and Patrick Henry on Jodico. GDOT won't approve one. And it doesn't make any sense, because at that point where this property is, it's the actual taper lane to get onto the interstate from there, and that doesn't make any sense to put traffic going there, because the only place you could go is on the interstate. So that's bad transportation planning. I think if you look clearly at what we propose here, a lot of, and this isn't the final, hopefully won't be the final, but a lot of interior movements to allow for a lot of the traffic to stay inside. As it relates to students walking to school, I don't know how many kids are gonna walk a mile, literally from this development down Patrick Henry, down up Holloway and up Tunis. They're probably gonna catch a bus for the kids that are actually coming out of here. Because there are some kids that do walk, and I see them in the morning, that live on Tunis and some that live on Holloway, some of the older kids. As it relates to ARC pushing this, I've been a city planner for almost 35 years. I'm also certified nationally through the American Institute of Certified Planners. This is something we call good planning, for the standpoint of we offset development going out more into Kellytown, where we do have way more environmentally sensitive areas, right? by allowing this to happen and not to be spreading out at 1 acre lots or 3/4 acre lots. And I always tell folks, if you pull back on the Google Earth and look at Henry County, right, all you see is single family developments everywhere. Right? And if you move to Henry County like I did in 2000, I was part of the problem. Right? Henry County started growing in 1994 with a lot of developments coming in. The crust of that started when they built Eagles Landing Country Club. That put Henry County on the map. Since then, she's right. I remember the 2 lanes at Eagles Landing. I do remember the 2 lanes across the interstate at Jodico Road. I do remember the 2 lanes at Jonesboro Road, right? I was here for that. And I was here watching ambulance having to go up on the sidewalk to go around cars because it was only 2 lanes. I was here when 2081 was improved, and now it's improved again. It's a diverging diamond. So in the last 25 years, I watched that roadway change twice, right? And now we're proposing another interchange down at Bethlehem Road. So yes, unfortunate. Unlike Texas, Georgia doesn't allow for the infrastructure to be built ahead of time with nothing on it. We tend to be lagging behind. I literally spent a week in Dallas metro area and was wondering where all these roads go to because there was nothing on them. And then the guy painted a picture for me that this is what's coming will come to this, and we won't have to retroactively fix it. I wish we could get to that point. But unfortunate, we've lagged behind. Schools have lagged behind here as well. As it relates to noise and fire protection, anything that's built has to be built to code. That code is controlled by International Code Congress, which is adopted by the Department of Community Affairs, and all associated communities adopt the ICC building and property maintenance codes and fire protection codes. We have to adhere to those. So we can't build without adhering to those standards. The right-of-way for Patrick Henry already exists for the most part. As I mentioned, 90% of that is already in place. And hopefully, yes, as we work with the development, the goal is to offset the cost on the impact on the SPLOS by allowing the developer to put in at least 50% of the costs towards the road improvement. That way, Henry County and Stockbridge only puts in 25, plus theirs 50 equals 100%. And that's discussions that'll be ongoing as we go through the process. I think that was some of the concerns on the infrastructure addressed at schools. Obviously, the quality of our schools, and I always say this, I actually spent 2 years being a school teacher after undergraduate school. Failing schools are dependent on failing parents, period, right? I remember working in the city of Griffin as their development director, and people did not want their kids to go to Griffin High School. But you know what's one of the #1 schools for putting kids in the Service Academy of the United States of America? Griffin High School. So explain to me how those kids can literally get the GPA and the necessary academic skills to qualify to go to the Air Force Academy, West Point, the Naval Academy, coming from a failing school. Failing kids are because of failing parents, period. I'm a parent of 2. My 14-year-old, when he was 14, he's now 23, did not go outside at night. I know exactly where he was. My 11-year-old does not traverse around the street because I'm a concerned parent, right? So I think we need to put the onus where it is. It's on poor parenting or poor parents. So if you put it in, your kid could go to any failing school and still succeed. You know why? Because if you put the time into your kid and your kid put the time into the work, they'll succeed, right? I'm a product of that. So I could speak to that. And I think my kid could speak to that, who finished Wesleyan University and now working for a major firm in the Washington, D.C. area. Graduated from Eagles Landing High School, 2018. Had an appointment to the United States Naval Academy, but chose to play soccer at a small school in North Carolina, all right? Came from Eagles Landing High School. So what you put into your kids is what you get out. You put 0, you get 0 out. Development don't control educational attainment, never has. But we still have to look at that, right, and account for it. So this is still in the planning stage. We're working, hopefully, like I said, this is not for you guys to vote on tonight. Our goal is to kind of give you guys what's coming. We did this presentation before the city council back in November. We presented this to the Board of Commissioners, some of the board and the staff to review and got their feedback. And so with that, not asking for a vote, and we'll make the necessary changes. We'll address some of the concerns, because I do know that that intersection is a concern at Holloway and Patrick Henry, as well as Holloway and Tunis, which is a bad left-hand turn if you're going to the schools. And so that I will end, and I'll keep these comments, so we'll make necessary changes and then at some point we'll bringing this back to the Planning Commission to actually take action on and take more comments.
All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, as this is a non-voting item, we've got a lot of ground to cover. Unless the board has anything else they'd like to ask, I think we'll move on. Okay. Ms. Logan, could you repeat item 2 for me again? You made a comment earlier, it's been a while.
Two, it was adoption of new land use and zoning maps for City of Stockbridge. The Planning and Zoning Office needs to conduct further research on this.
Okay, understood. Do we require a vote to pass on this?
Item 2, it was advertised for a hearing.
We do.
I'd say you can open it for a public hearing and then continue it.
Okay.
Or did you want to remove it?
No, I think we can, if we can pass, that's what we can
We
do.
want to remove it from tonight's agenda.
Okay. Do I have a motion from the board to remove from the agenda?
Chair, motion to move item number 2, adoption of the new land use and zoning maps for the city of Stockbridge to, for a meeting in the future.
I'll second it, Harold.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, the next case is CP 202401. I'll read this into the record. This is Council District 5. Consider